going to talk about something that seems to be a lot more divisive now than I really have seen in any of the prior seasons, and I believe it's because of the juncture we're at. It's no longer about can you acquire talent through the draft. It's no longer about can you develop that talent. Now it's about how can you best continue to keep this type of success, not just moving forward, but also taking it up a level. And there's some people out there who don't believe that Brad Holmes has done enough to address the edge position, the pass rush position, for a few years now of, having Super Bowl expectations. And so I want to ask you, how have you been feeling about Brad Holmes' free agency so far as it relates to addressing the pass rush? Oof.
that sigh, I don't like that.
Woo-sigh.
I would say I would like a little bit more. And before everybody jumps at my head and goes at me for like, what'd you want? Myles Garrett, Trey Hendrickson, blah, 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 blah.
Kinda.
Here's what I will say.
Yeah.
This is why I'm at the point where I'm at right now. What happened with Za'Darius Smith? Because obviously you understand that you can give a free agent the greatest offer that you can, and they might not want to come here. And that's fair. Obviously, we saw that Azeez Ojulari just signed with the Philadelphia Eagles for 1 year, $4 million. And if I heard today that Azeez Ojulari signed with the Lions for 1 year, $4 million, I would be doing backflips off of this. And of course, it's the freaking Eagles. And we all know that the Eagles are a team to be mindful of, considering they're the defending Super Bowl champions. My thing is that I still will never understand what they were doing with a Za'Darius Smith. I understand that Big Z had a signing bonus and he was in theory going to be too expensive, but at the end of the day, they were in good cap shape even with Za'Darius Smith. So that's what has made me have a little bit of a cause for pause for now. I understand that there's still some names left. Matt Judon is still left, for example. Von Miller is still left. If you want me to give a couple of other names, Charles Amenhue, Preston Smith. Not the greatest, but decent players, and if you can get them or players even with Preston Smith that used to be really good, and Charles Amenhue was good with the Chiefs. I understand that, and I understand that there's still time for work to be done. I understand that there's going to be camp cuts, and I understand that there's a draft. But I do think that it is imperative for this team that the edge rusher opposite of Aiden Hutchinson is not Marcus Davenport. And I thought that at the very least it was going to be Za'Darius Smith, but they let him go. And I understand that the Lions might re-sign him for a cheaper contract, and if they do that, I will basically get on my hands and knees for Brad. Pause. bow. But at the end of the day, I wanted them to keep Za'Darius Smith. I hope that they have a plan. And that's the controllable where I'm like, I wouldn't have done that if I were Brad Holmes personally.
I agree with you there, and that's somewhere that I believe all of us were. We were excited to see Za'Darius Smith playing a usage role that we thought when they made the trade, all of us said it's for right now to fill in, but also we have him under contract for next season as well. So, Aiden will come back, Aleem will get healthy, and Big Z doesn't have to play as big a role as he did last year. And if he's able to kind of be your sacks leader after you traded for him, who is he then when all the attention is not on him? Because he was the one that teams had to zero in on with Big Hutch down and a lot of the injuries that piled up on that defensive line. And that's where I was very excited to see, all right, we got this guy, pretty good trade, pretty good deal. It's not going to crater your cap space. We got Big Z. Now, if they bring him back, and you get that cheaper contract, like you said, that's a stroke of genius by one Brad Holmes. And he's shown to be able to do some good shrewd moves. Some pan out, some don't. But the Big Z one was one that I thought, hey, this guy wants to be here. He's assimilated perfectly. He already looks like a Detroiter. Now he's dating a Detroiter. He's writing the culture already, and he actually performed on the field in a role that I believed was actually bigger than where he is right now as a player. And so that's where, another thing you talked about, and KG as well, is about who and how Za'Darius Smith has been and how he's looked next to really good bookend edges. And that's where I was just like, it's right there for us. It's not like he came here and didn't perform well in an increased role. He came here and he did pretty decent, and that's why I'm like, golly, I'm hoping Brad Holmes has a plan. Something that I dropped yesterday is I believe he set himself up to say, you know what, we still have a pretty good defensive line with a healthy Aiden, healthy Aleem. We got a rotation platoon that we can deploy until Aleem McNeil gets back. And then you got the draft. Not that I believe they're going to go out there and draft a starter, but I do believe they're going to go out there and get a young dog. And I do believe maybe they're leaving themselves available for the trade deadline to see how does this team by the trade deadline, how do they look? Are there worse things that we need to go and prop up at that by that time than what we see right now? And that's where I'm hoping Brad Holmes, who's generally had a really, in my opinion, kind of good feel on these things, at the last couple trade deadlines, I feel like he's been more right than what we've been. And that's where I'm wondering, is he kind of gearing up or leaving himself available for that, since this team is still a 15-2 team, sure, adding an Aiden Hutchinson?
Well, and I wanted to read a couple of comments because I think we can maybe not kumbaya amongst the chat, but just to kind of get a gauge for further discussion. This is from a Hoof-Hearted. The problem with Z's contract was 2026. He would have counted $6 million against the cap in 2026, but that's the year that Goff's contract hits the cap hard. And I will say this. If another move is to be made, like bringing Zadarius Smith back, or even if it's Von Miller, Charles Omenihu, they end up drafting a Jared Verse, or even hell, Leatu Latu or Chop Robinson style player, and they don't bring back Zadarius Smith, I will shut my mouth about it. I promise. And I'll be like, okay, Brad, I get what you were doing. My thing is that I think there should be a slight bit of urgency when it comes to not having Marcus Davenport be your bookend edge rusher, because he hasn't shown that he can be healthy the last couple of years. He hasn't really shown he can be healthy throughout his entire career. That's why you gave him the contract that you did, which if he performs, fantastic, but I don't necessarily trust it. And then outside of that, Josh Paschal, with all due respect, So, I mean, come on. You could argue that was a bad pick. You certainly could. He's got this year to really prove himself, but he hasn't really been that healthy or productive in his career as well. So I'm not necessarily saying that Brad Holmes has done a bad job in free agency, because I like a lot of moves, and certainly when it comes to like DJ Reed or re-signing Levi O in tandem with a Roy Lopez, I certainly liked that. But at the end of the day, there needs to be more, in my opinion, than just getting rid of a Zadarius Smith and signing Marcus Davenport. Do I think there will? Sure, but the options are becoming a lot more limited. It's starting to look more like the draft is where he's going to cook up.
Yeah, I definitely want to see what he does during the draft. We know that he goes into drafts and he gets starters that develop into Pro Bowlers. And some of those guys look like it in season one. Shout out Sam Laporta. And that's where it's like, all right, go in there and do your thing, Brad. I'm not expecting, like I said, to go out there and find this, a Jared Verse necessarily. But I am expecting him to go into this draft and find those pieces that will contribute to the team, especially as you're hoping that Aiden Hutchinson and Lee McNeil and some of the other players that were injured. You talk about a Malcolm Rodriguez, from the linebacker position, though, who could also get into that backfield. You're getting these guys back, but you want to make sure that they're not having to go and play at like 150% like they were last year, coming off of some of the injuries they did. If you can get some players that can give you make some type of an impact, and make sure, like when you look at a Roy Lopez and the fact that they're saying this guy is a downs eater and he gives, his motor is high, he's a nasty kind of physical type lineman. That's what I'm hoping that these Detroit Lions are able to do, because I don't know how much they're able to go into this draft with where they're picking and draft that guy. But I do know if there's somebody that can identify it, it's going to be a Brad Holmes who can identify it. And then you do. We have to make sure we leave open the realm of possibility for the trade deadline. But I do want to ask you this,
yes,
because we have to frame it. Your comments are not based on just in a vacuum of who Brad Holmes is, but where the Lions are, their expectations in trying to win a Super Bowl. Because that's currently constructed. What's your confidence level in how they're currently constructed to perform in this NFC next year?
As they are currently constructed, I think the Eagles are definitely El Capitano right now, although they did lose Milton Williams and Josh Sweat, to be fair, but they've got some younger guys who are ready to step up and have bigger roles, and they did just get Azeez Ojulari. I'd still probably put them at second in the NFC, although you also have to contend that the Commanders are coming as well, but they're still very well positioned. I would have liked for them to keep Za'Darius, and because they didn't, I would like them to make a corresponding move. And for all the people who are saying that, why are you obsessing about free agents that were never going to come here, like a Cody Ingle, one of the top Brad bots, my biggest bone of contention right now is about Za'Darius Smith. The contract be damned. And I don't mean the contract be damned in terms of just like say F it, but a Za'Darius Smith on the books for 2025 and even $6 million for 2026, is that really going to hurt you that much? People acting like he's making $30 million. Come on.
Understandable. And I guess my role in this is I'm trying to unify the fan base to some degree, because it's okay to have questions. And Flannel, like I totally understand what you're feeling, and I do honestly get both sides of this thing. Being a long-term Lions fan, like I get it, I do get it, but I just choose to err on the side that Brad does have a plan. He hasn't went too many times without having a plan. Is he perfect? Absolutely not. And it's okay to question, some of the moves that have gone down to this point. And I'm in the same boat as Flannel from the aspect of, okay, if you got rid of Za'Darius Smith, what are you doing to replace that? Because at least I feel like they know that Marcus Davenport can't be your starter going forward. So you need somebody that can come in and can make a difference. At this point, it does appear like it's going to be through the draft, but I will just caution fans, there's still a lot of time to go. We have a lot of time to acquire that veteran pass rusher. Maybe it's not in the free agent market, but a lot of things happen after the draft. A lot of things happen post June 1st. We may not even get that pass rusher until camp, with some of the cuts and some of the movement that happens around that time as well. So I think the next big acquisition will be the draft. So fans probably just need to strap in and wait in terms of, getting that edge rusher. And I'm sure he'll get a edge rusher or two in the draft. But ultimately, you do need something like a veteran to supplement all of this. And we would like it to be Za'Darius Smith, because he is somebody that came in and produced for this team. Now, whether they feel like he's the proper scheme fit, I don't know, because he does go against kind of the prototype that they normally look for in pass rushers, although he did come in and he was productive. But at the price point that I feel like you can get him at, this is still something that I would strongly consider Brad and the regime to go out there and do. Because if you can plug in a Za'Darius Smith, I think he can easily be your starter to start the year. Yeah. If things change, you can, go accordingly. But he is somebody that can stay on the field. He's capable of double-digit sacks even at his age. And I would love to have him back in the Lions uniform.
Definitely would, man. You spitting over there, man. And it's interesting. I'm curious to see what the Detroit Lions are going to do this year on defenses. Didn't they add another depth linebacker, I believe, from the Colts this offseason as well? I forget the name.
Grant Stewart.
Yeah, Grant Stewart. Yeah. And we all know the flexibility of their safeties as well. But it's going to be interesting to see what they do, because you're right. But two questions for you.
Yeah.
Same when I asked Flannel as well, your confidence level in this team as currently constructed and knowing what they can do in the draft. But two, as well as you, Flannel, what's your confidence level in this team going into the draft and getting a guy that makes an impact on that defensive line?
I mean, both of them are 9 out of 10. The only reason it's not a full 10 is because of how things ended last year and even the year before that, to be honest. But we know the waters that we're in now. We all know that everything is dependent upon playoff success. Even in the face of 15 wins last year, it's widely considered a failure just based on what your expectations were and the fact that you didn't get it done. But like I said, to this point, Brad Holmes has not shown me that he doesn't know how to yield a team. He also has not shown me that he doesn't know how to attack a weakness. Our secondary was a weakness for a long time on this team, and I think we will all universally agree that that's been corrected. And really in a year's time that got corrected. I think we can expect to see the same thing at the pass rushing position. Like I said, a majority of your acquisitions will come through the draft just because they value cap space, they value rookie contracts, and if they can find the right type of player to come in here and fit this system, then you got them on the books for 5 years at a very cheap price. So I'm not necessarily mad at the method. Would I like to see a little more urgency? Of course, I'm a fan. I would like to see a move, especially when you see Azeez Ojulari go for like $4 million to the Eagles of all teams. That's a damn good move for them, and he is somebody that is going to come in and contribute for them just based on the talent around him. But ultimately, I just think we need to be patient, and it's going to take a little time. It's not going to be done the way we want it done, but I think we can get to the desired result. I just think we need to be a little more patient.
I feel that, man. I feel that. And for you, Flannel Sam, man, are you confident in what Brad is going to do in this draft? You guys have done a good job at profiling the trench boys, you know, and that's where I do believe that he's going to come away from this draft, and this defensive line is going to be something. I see some of the comments as well in the chat that I'm hoping we can address. Yeah. But just wanted to be able to get your perspective on this draft. Some of the players you've profiled, you know, obviously in comparison with where the Detroit Lions are picking as well at number 28.
My confidence level in this year's draft, if they want to go the draft route in terms of really bolstering this defensive line, it's pretty high. The one thing that gives me a small bit of cause for pause is that I don't think the 2024 draft really impacted that team as much as some people were led to believe. I understand that Terrion Arnold was a starter and he was solid at times. I'll give him that. Ennis Rakestraw was a nobody his rookie year, and a lot of it was due to injuries. Giovanni Manu was a nobody his rookie year. Christian Mahogany, albeit he was very good when he played, only played 144 snaps. Sione Vaki was a special teams player, although a very good one, and I don't know if I'm missing anybody, but
Sam, just to push back on that a little bit, one, it's only been a year. And, you know, there's still plenty of time to figure out whether this draft class was good or not. And just based on where the Lions were at the time of last year's draft, you didn't need a lot of people to come in here and just make an impact day one. Of course, you needed that at the corner position, which is why you took back-to-back corners in round 1 and round 2. And I would say that Terrion Arnold hit the ground running. Was he perfect? Absolutely not. But he is somebody that can hold down that number 2 corner role, maybe even number 1 with a little more seasoning. And, you know, he's came in and he's hit the ground running. We still don't know about Rakestraw. Manu and Mahogany, by all accounts, seem to be on track. I guess you can at least say that. And Sione Vaki, while used in a very limited role, he did show, you know, some flashes. I think he can be a contributor to this Lions team. So ultimately, I just think it's just a tad too soon to say that the 2024 draft was just no impact at all.
Well, I'm talking about for one season. I'm not saying that that they aren't going to be all really good players. It's just as of right now, if you're going to, let's just say Zadarius Smith doesn't come back, right now your bookend edge rusher is Marcus Davenport. I would really like somebody that makes an impact right away. At least one defensive lineman. And like I said, it could be a variety of different ways. It could be Jared Verse. That would be amazing. We'd all be thrilled with that. Mm-hmm. Or it could even be in the way that Chop Robinson was impactful. Mm-hmm. We'd be thrilled with that as well.
Yeah, and that's where, you know, you're looking at things, and I get it. The reason why I would honestly view it year by year is because they're not rebuilding. They're in the middle of a Super Bowl window. Yeah. So those players that hit that roster have to be able to contribute to that, or else we walk away another year and now looking like the San Francisco 49ers of the last decade, of getting just close enough but not able to get over the edge. And that is where it is important in this draft for Brad to cook up. Not that you're looking for, not that you believe or that it's all riding on him to go and draft a superstar to, but to at least go out there and get those players that you know can, in those spurts, man, that they're going to play, in the rotations that they're going to play. Understanding that Davenport, even if Davenport is ahead of you in the depth chart, get prepared to play some games this year. Yeah, that's where you really have to make sure that you got some guys, and he's done well with that. This team went 15-2 losing depth all season long. And who continued to step up? The players that Brad Holmes was identifying. And that's where I do my confidence level, like KG, it's very, very high.
How can it not be?
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It's because we're talking about a guy who has produced, but where it does start to just get a little more, pause for concern a little bit, is when you have to factor in that they're in the middle of a Super Bowl window, and the Eagles did get better this offseason, and the Commanders are doing everything in their power to make sure they don't fall off. And so you got some teams that you're going to have to contend with, including some of the ones in the past that we thought those teams could be, but they fell off. And let's not forget, we do play in the NFC North.
And not to say that the Lions can't get better from where they are right now, but we're talking about a 15-2 number one seeded team. And I get it, they didn't do it in the playoffs, but overall, what we don't need, drastic moves to this team. Would it have been nice to get a superstar? Of course. I'm not going to deny that. As a fan, I would love that. But at the same time, you don't need to add that much more to this mix. You're already right there. This just needs to be very, very strategic moves at this point.
But KG, you're just giving some of the slappies just red meat with what you said right there.
I'm not trying.
Yes, you are.
I'm not trying to.
I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but when you said superstar, I'm talking about, I would have been thrilled with Azeez Ojulari. I would have been thrilled with Dante Fowler Jr. I'd still be thrilled with even Von Miller at this stage, at this point. And beggars can't be choosers. So I don't want anybody to mistake me for, we should have gave Josh Sweat $25 million and basically outbid the Cardinals. I'm not saying that.